I should begin with a confession. I have grave concerns about the direction of the BBC, not because I believe in its abolition, I don't, but precisely because I believe in its purpose. And I should also put my cards on the table and say I'm also a proud holder of an Irish passport, but that doesn't make me a Gerry Adams sympathiser, far from it. There's something enduringly opaque, even sinister, that I find in Mr. Adams, regardless of how benevolent he promises to be with his libel winnings now. And there's something, as I say, that I find very self-destructive and arrogant and inappropriate in the way the BBC has behaved, certainly in the last 2 decades, and it seems to be getting worse. On May the 30th, today, Gerry Adams won £100,000 in a libel case against the BBC over a 2016 Spotlight documentary and accompanying article. When looked at it objectively, it's not a great deal of money for the BBC, but it is. We've paid our licence fees to line the pockets of the people who Gerry Adams is going to give that money to. And it didn't need to happen. The programme alleged via an anonymous source named Martin that Adams had sanctioned the murder of Dennis Donaldson, a former Sinn Féin official and a long-time British informant who was executed in Donegal months after his exposure. And the BBC alleged the allegation was presented as such, not a proven fact, and that the reporting was in the public interest. But the Dublin jury disagreed. It found the BBC had not acted in good faith, that the allegation was understood to mean Adams had approved the murder, and that the claim had unjustly smeared his reputation. And Adams, characteristically composed and armed with a Palestinian scarf and a line for every microphone, declared the case was about putting manners on the BBC. And from that point of view, Adams is exactly right. This was a lazy bit of reporting. Now, Mr. Adams is no ordinary plaintiff. He led Sinn Féin from 1983 to 2018. He stood at the forefront of the peace process, yes, but also at the shadowed intersection between politics and between politics and paramilitary command. He's denied endlessly that he was ever a member of the IRA, and yet British security files, former Republican colleagues, and a fair number of historians suggest otherwise. Indeed, when Adams was arrested in 2014 in relation to the 1972 John McConville murder, it was not because he was mistaken for a librarian. What Adams has always possessed, however, is a preternatural sense of narrative control. And in this latest case, he played the part of wounded elder statesman, defamed not by his past but by editorial recklessness. He even promised the damages might go to good causes, but he doesn't say what they are. A flourish of moral grandeur familiar to those who've seen this performance before. But what of the BBC? This is not their finest hour. The core of their argument that the broadcast was a work of good faith journalism was compelling in principle, but evidently weak in legal execution. They relied on anonymous sources to make one of their gravest possible allegations, that a senior political figure ordered an extrajudicial execution. That's not investigative journalism. It's Russian roulette with reputations. The BBC Northern Ireland's director Adam Smith lamented the profound implications of the case for free expression. But one must ask, was it journalism or was it drama with footnotes? The BBC, of course, will survive this, and one suspects that its continued lurch into sensationalism, often more interested in scandal than scrutiny, is corroding its mission from within. There was a time when Spotlight meant precisely that, sober exposure. Now it risks becoming a tabloid with production values. Adams brought the case in Dublin under the Republic's notoriously plaintiff-friendly libel laws. There, the burden is not on the accuser to prove the allegation, but on the journalist to prove that reporting the allegation was justified. It's perhaps ironic that Adams, long accused of circumventing legal accountability in the North, found refuge in the courtroom of the South. But here's the danger. We're now at risk of a paradox in which legal vindication can be mistaken for historical absolution. Adams has won this case, and won it fairly, but that doesn't settle the broader question of his role in the darker corners of the Troubles. Legal damages are not footnotes in history books, and nor should they be. So, coming to the opening point that I made, yes, we need the BBC. We need a public broadcaster unafraid to tell difficult truths. But we also need it to do so with scrupulous care, with humility, with responsibility. I find it astonishing how the modern BBC borrows other or coattails other journalists and doesn't take responsibility. It doesn't credit its sources properly. And this is another example. To have the swagger of certainty when it hasn't done the work, when the facts are murky, and when the stakes are so high. And yes, we need justice for Dennis Donaldson, for all the families left with unanswered questions, and for the peace process that is still very much under construction. We also need memory. And memory must not be outsourced to either anonymous informants or expensive lawyers. It belongs to us all. And that includes to Mr. Adams as well. And memory and truth must be preserved even when, especially when, it's uncomfortable.